Welcome to Halloween Kendo Rant. Hi folks, it's Andy and welcome to this week's Kendo Rant. We've got loads of questions for you today. It is the Halloween special. As you can see, I've come dressed as the lead singer of one of the greatest rock bands of all time. And you'll have to see if you can guess in the comments who that is. We've got loads of questions, like I say. We'll get to them in just a minute. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe. Don't want me coming for you in your dreams. Shop at KendoStar, support the channel. Let's get into these questions, all right? Andy, I have the opportunity to go for Showdown in a few weeks' time after previously passing IQ just before the summer. I've been told multiple downgrades, sorry. One of them, Nanadan, that I'm okay to and should attend the grading session. The trouble is that I don't feel like I've seen any significant improvement in myself since passing IQ roughly 4 months ago. I previously seen or felt a difference when going through the Q ranks, so I'm cautious about going for Showdown without me seeing any change since my IQ grading. I practice a minimum twice a week. I do put the effort in. We often hear you say that all that's needed for Showdown is to demonstrate Kikentai no Ichi, but is it really that simple, or are my nerves really kicking in, and am I overthinking things? What are your thoughts? And thanks again for continuing to have the energy and taking the time to continue to make these videos is still very much appreciated. Well, I appreciate that last sentiment. Thank you very much. I'm just trying to operate my mouse with my my appendages. So, okay, so the question is, to summarize, right, is you got your IQ 4 months ago and now you're not sure if you are ready for Showdown or not because you haven't felt that you've improved all that much. Look, the difference between IQ and Showdown is actually really, really small. If you get through IQ, the chances are you can probably get through Showdown. If you're confident that you can make strikes with Fumikomi and Kikentai no Ichi, then you'll pass the Showdown, all right? So you probably are overthinking it a little bit. You're probably a little bit too nervous about it. I was very much the same when I was at that stage as well, so it is very, very normal. Don't worry about it too much. If you've got senior senseis and stuff telling you that, then that you're ready for it, then go for it. I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. Don't overthink it. Showdown is not a particularly super high grade. You just need to show that you are able to make strikes with Kikentai no Ichi and have sort of the beginning resemblance of Yuko Datotsu, all right, which is valid strikes. I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. Next one, hang on, let me highlight it there. There we go. Okay, so I just found out this afternoon that we've been put forward for a shiai against the students of another university in the area. We're all novices to one degree or another. I'm not super worried about ending up against someone who's technically way ahead of me, but I'm not aggressive or even assertive chap by nature. What advice can you offer to help cultivate the approach to Zanshin, the appropriate Zanshin during training over the next 2 months? I'm not too concerned about how I perform since I'm a total novice 5 weeks in, but I want to make sure that I put in a good showing for our university and for our club leader. So, the thing about this is you're much like the previous person. You're probably overthinking it a bit too much. Just do your best in your practices and leading up to the tournament, the shiai, sorry, and then just do your best in your matches. It's not the end of the world. It's not super. You know, it sounds like it's obviously like a friendly match type thing. You're not going to let the university down or your club down or anything like that. You've only been doing Kendo for sort of 5 or 6 weeks, so just do your best in training. Try to, for your first like shiai experience, one thing I always say is just don't lose on the voice, all right? So make sure you have the biggest shout, yeah? And you'll be fine other than that, all right? Just do your best, all right? Don't worry about it. You don't need tips on how to train up for it at this stage, okay? I'm not dismissing you, right? I don't want you to feel like I'm dismissing you. I don't want you to overthink it. Just go and do your best and enjoy, all right? As much as you can. Hello, Andy. Just a question about modern armor design. When you guys make an armor, can you incorporate a hard piece of plastic in the men and the right quote for extra protection? Just wondering, as I felt like just depending on stitching is not adequate enough, especially when we have to deal with all ranges of practitioners. I personally have extra men and quote protectors. Thank you. So look, I recommend you go and watch the video that I've done about sort of improving. I can't remember what it's called exactly now, but it's something like improving the design of the men or something like that. And I basically go into why that's not going to happen. No, we can't put a piece of hard plastic inside the armor. It will interfere with how it is made. The stitching is adequate. The stitching is adequate, especially like the way we do it at KendoStar for kendo practice. All right. If you're experiencing pain, even though you're using a Bogu that's protective, like one you would get from KendoStar, then there's a problem with the person hitting you, and you have to tell them. All right, you have to tell them. If we go to the extent where, you know, Kendogu is so protective, it doesn't matter how rubbish the other person is when they're attacking you, you still can't feel it. Then we run the risk of it separating from proper practice of Kendo. People have to understand that if they don't strike properly, they'll cause pain to their partner. And that means that the people who are receiving, if they're going to expect you to receive for them, they have to practice with you in a way that isn't going to make it painful or uncomfortable. They mustn't cause you discomfort. So it's really important. You have to nip this in the bud right at the start. If you've got beginners that are hitting hard, you have to tell them immediately, that's too hard. You have to hit lighter. You have to use a snap more rather than a thud. You have to tell this straight away. And if you tell them and you tell them again and you tell them a third time and they still don't listen, then tell them that they can't hit you in the Bogu and they should just practice stability until they can learn to do it. All right? Because that's the fact of it. All right? You shouldn't be experiencing that. There's a responsibility of not just students, but of students not to cause pain to their partners, but of receivers as well, to let the partners know when it is painful. All right, and you mustn't cause pain to the other person. It's not acceptable to do that. All right, it's not part of it. It's not part and parcel of it. It's not acceptable. All right, when you receive the strikes from the high level practitioner, it's not painful. All right, and that isn't. It's not an excuse. You don't have the right to cause pain to other people. All right, so yeah. We're not putting plastic in it for the sake of people that don't want to learn how to hit properly. Next one. Hi Fish Sensei, in regards to Showdown, do you consider it a waza or a style? As a tall person, I'd like to practice it as a technique to be used punctually, not all the time, but I'm not sure that would be ideal. Could you please give your opinion on the matter? Thanks. It's not a waza. It's not a waza. It's a kamae. All right. It's a kamae. So it's more of a style than a waza. It's not something that you'll have much success in if you just dip into it every now and again. I'm not sure why you would want to do that. So, look, my advice is don't even touch Showdown until you're at least third dan. And if you're going to do it, then you need to spend a serious amount of time studying it, which means you need to practice it for an extended period. It doesn't mean that you have to ignore Showdown. You don't. But it means that you have to care to study it properly. It's not, you're not going to like me saying this, right? But it's not a bit of fun. It's not there for you to play with. Yeah. That's not what Kendo's for. So, especially as, you know, when you start doing something like Showdown, it's linked to the previous comment. If you start to do it wrong, you could cause serious pain to other people or discomfort. So, you know, you have to commit to doing it properly and learning to do it properly. Okay? So, yeah. I hope that makes sense. Next one. This mustache is itchy. Fish Sensei, thank you for all you do for the Kendo community. I remember a month or two ago, you mentioned new equipment. Do you plan on releasing information about it in the near future? Even if I don't order everything KendoStar offers, I love seeing the new ideas and designs you come up with. Why don't you order everything we offer? Of course, you don't have to order everything we offer, but you should order all of your equipment from us. There's no good reason not to. Not if you like enjoying these videos for free. So, I mean, look at the effort I go to. I put a mustache on. Anyway, look, about new equipment, we've always got new equipment coming out. I'm not sure exactly what it is that you were particularly referring to. We've got new stuff on the horizon all the time. We've got new Bogu sets in the pipeline. To be honest, you were talking latter end of next year for those, because they're quite big projects. We don't have any plans to particularly remove much of the current setup though, so we've got new Shinai coming very soon, and some other new and exciting products all the time. So yeah, keep an eye on it and make sure you keep shopping at KendoStar.com. Yeah. Okay, next one. Right, these are now into the ones from the Kendo Show Early Access group. If you're not in that group, get in the group. All right, get in the group so that we can all sleep soundly at night. What is the meaning of Deshi? Is it an old word for us now? Okay, so Deshi means like they often use it to mean like student or pupil. I actually think a most appropriate word is like apprentice. It's not really a common concept in Kendo anymore. Like if you were somebody's Deshi, like a sensei's Deshi in Kendo, it means that like you're more than just the regular student of them. Like you do everything you can to learn everything you can from them. So often in the past they would even like maybe live at the same place as the sensei, who often lived at the dojo, help do the cleaning or care for the dojo, look after the sensei's things. These days it's more common, like high school kids will do a similar thing with their high school teachers, but they'll more do it as a collective rather than as an individual. It's not that uncommon, for example, for high school kids to live at the same place as the sensei. The sensei often has like a house that has like a dormitory attached, and the kids will like obviously look after it, but often they'll help the sensei with several things, like they'll walk his dog and stuff like that. I've seen that before. But yeah, I mean, the word Deshi itself, it's not really appropriate for most modern Kendo uses. Sometimes use it like if a craftsman has a Deshi, like a student, and they will teach a particular person to learn the craft, like Bogu or something, but it might not be Bogu, it could be anything. A more sort of Kendo appropriate term for the modern sort of day would be like they use the word Oshiego a lot. Oshiego is a person that you've trained. So a sensei would say their Oshiego, this person is my Oshiego, which is their student. But it's not quite the same as Deshi. It doesn't mean that they basically like, wash the car and stuff like that. So bit like the Karate Kid stuff. So yeah. It's an important part of Kendo history, though, and I think the concept of sensei and student is still very, very important. It's overlooked a little bit too much, especially it's especially difficult in the West because most of us learning Kendo are adults, and we don't have a natural culture in society of what the Japanese call Joge Kanke, which is the natural hierarchy of society. But it's actually very, very important in Kendo. So I think to progress to sort of higher levels, it's something you have to kind of try and figure out. Hi, Andy. Since the pandemic, my federation has not held a Shinsa. But I recently found out that one of the smaller federations that operates in the area is holding their first Shinsa next month. I'm investigating it, if it would be worth to try and test with them rather than waiting for mine. Like I said, they're smaller, so the risk of exposure is much lower, and I could take myself out of the massive backlog of students waiting to test in my federation. What are your thoughts on this? Do you have any experience or knowledge of trying to test with a different federation? I'll be testing for Nidan, by the way. All right, so I don't have experience of testing with a different federation at like Nidan level. My original federation is the British Kendo Association, and then I took my 5th Dan in Japan under the All Japan Kendo Federation, specifically the Kumamoto Kendo Federation, and then I took my 6th Dan under the European Kendo Federation, because that's what you have to do for 6th Dan and 7th Dan. So I don't really have the same sort of experience that you're describing. However, look, I think the best thing you can do, really, and it's a bit of a cop-out answer, and I'm sorry for that, is just to talk to your teacher, talk to your sensei first, and ask their advice, what they would be happy for you to do. I personally don't see a massive problem with you trying it with the other federation if everybody's happy with you doing that, but you'll need to talk to your teacher, probably maybe even talk to your federation to see if they're happy with you for doing that. Don't forget, you know, there's 2 sides of this coin. Yeah, you will be taking pressure off them, I guess, from the backlog. But at the same time, like it or not, and it doesn't matter if you like it or not because it's a fact, gradings are an important source of income for federations, and that income is necessary for your federation to exist, which is necessary for you to be able to practice Kendo. So if you do your grading at the different federation, it is taking those fees away from that federation and giving it to the other one. So that is something else that's worth considering at this. Normally it's not worth considering because it's normally not an issue, but particularly after the sort of 2 years that we've had where most federations have had a massive hit to their income, it is something that is worth bearing in mind. So what I'm saying is that's why you definitely should talk to your own teacher and see what they think. Overall, I don't think there's a huge problem with it. If you were my student, I'd probably encourage you doing it, especially if there aren't any gradings arranged within the federation you're part of. Instead, you know, it's better for you to do it sooner. Is my point of view, but there are other aspects as I've explained, so it is worth just checking that. Okay, next one. Hi Andy, is there any way you can explain how Shiai work, especially in tournaments where it's 5 versus 5 matchups? I've tried looking around, but no one seems to talk about it, or even regular Shiai. I would like to get a better understanding for someone who's played in the national team, maybe have more insight on it. Thanks for the awesome videos and love watching Kendo Rant every week. Yeah, I mean, actually, it's in the rule book, which I happen to have here underneath a pumpkin that somebody left there before carving it. Here, I have the rule book. It actually says in here, I say I have the rule book, it's my wife's rule book. It explains how Team Shiai works in here. It actually explains everything, all right? First off, but to give you a quick overview, you have 5 players. Senpo, Jiho, Chuken, Kusho, Taisho is generally the way it goes for 5 versus 5. For the most part, most Shiai are run by Sanbon Shoben. It's standard format, so your Senpo fights the other team's Senpo. Then the Jiho fights the other team's Jiho, and so on and so on. Then whoever has the most wins the match. If the wins are equal, then whoever scored the most points wins the match. So yeah, that's usually how they do it. Not always though; it can change. If my recollection is correct, I'm not gonna lie. I've not done like a Shiai in like 3 years or something. So, but that's basically how it works. But it's all detailed in here. It's not complicated. It's all in there. It even tells you how you should line up. It's all there. It gives you diagrams how you should line up when you're doing the ray, and it explains how the actual scoring works and all that as well. So I recommend this. It's the regulations of Kendo Shiai and Shimpan and the subsidiary rules of Kendo Shiai and Shimpan, available at KendoStar.com. Next one. Hi Andy, kata question coming at you. Sorry. I don't mind kata questions. I really don't. What What I'm not a specialist on is like asking me history questions. Like, does this kata originate from this ryuha and stuff like that? Because I don't know the answer to that. But I'm curious on how to improve upon kata at the higher grades where you essentially keep performing the same 10 kendo kata. I guess it comes down to something more than technical or physical capability. Or do you get to a point where your kata is good enough and then you just keep it sharp, so to speak? Curious as to your answer, any knowledge you can impart. Big thanks as always. All right, so look, there's only 10 kata in kendo, and at higher grades, I mean, it depends what you call in higher grades, but if we're talking like 6th dan and 7th dan, right? The sort of deeper aspects of the kata don't really become relevant until then. And often, particularly outside of Japan, like kata is well overemphasized. So like people, like there's people that are like 3rd dan and like they practice kata every week, so they know the kata inside out, and they're good at kata, and probably their kata is good enough like to pass like 6th or 7th dan, and to be honest, I've seen 6th and 7th dan pass kata that's pretty rubbish from my point of view. I think that's where this is coming from. The kata in my book, it's you've got two aspects of it. You've got the physical form of it, and you can definitely pass up to pretty much 4th or 5th dan, mainly with just getting the physical form correct. And your kendo ability will show in that as well, to the degree at which you are physically performing the kata. And then you've got the underlying aspects as well, like the deeper concepts, like the concepts of sen, seme, kigurai, zanshin, these sort of things, which are more complicated, but at the same time, even at like 6th and 7th dan level, like from my experience of watching the gradings and the ones that pass, it's not like they expect you to be like, well, I mean, they do. You've got to get it right, and it's got to have something more to it than just the physical aspect, right? But at the end of the day, on the surface of it, the kata aren't super complicated, but you start to understand the concepts that are deeper in them as your kendo improves more. Not improves more, but as you get to deeper levels of kendo. So in my opinion, you don't start to really look at what's behind the kata until you passed 5th dan. And I know lots of people think that that's what they're doing, but they're not, because they don't actually understand it, because they're not able to apply it in Shinai Kendo. So they're not really, they might understand the theory because they've been told it by their sensei or whatever, but they don't really understand it because they don't experience it yet. So there's that aspect as well, in where the experience with the Shinai affects your ability to properly understand the DI, the rationale of the kata, and therefore perform at a higher level. But that's not always obvious to the spectator, from the third party. It can look reasonably similar. So, it's a bit of a complicated one, but it kind of evolves together with your own kendo practice. But there's no way you can fully appreciate the depth of the kendo kata until you've gathered enough experience with practicing the actual tachiai, in my opinion anyway. In other words, you can't just do kata only. You'll never get that good at it. You might be good at doing the moves, but you're kind of missing the deeper elements. Greetings, Fish Sensei. What would you encourage students to improve on being better senpai and helping teach the kohai, so that the senpai have a better appreciation for being students themselves and being more mentally active as students instead of just being at class to do jigeko? In addition, of course, to helping the kohai, what mindsets do you use when you visit new sensei, or what do you do with your students when you want them to improve on their kendo on their own? The goal is not to keep them out of armour, but on the other hand, not to reinforce the repetition of bad technique. All right. Oh, it's falling into my mouth now. This mustache, this high quality very expensive, no expense spared mustache. Okay. All right. I like the question. It's interesting, but it comes from a very different point of view to one in which I hold myself. As a teacher, you're not responsible for the improvement of your students. That sounds like a controversial statement, but you're not, all right? If my students don't listen to me and don't put the effort in to improve, it's not my fault. It's not my problem. It's theirs. I've done what I needed to. I've done my part. I've fulfilled my end of the bargain. But it's not my responsibility to teach, not to teach, but to make my students improve. All right. And similarly, encouraging your students to be better senpai, well, it's up to them. It's really down to them, isn't it? It's really down to them, isn't it? If they want to be better senpai or not. If they want to be, I'm not sure you need to teach them. And if they don't want to be, then teaching them seems to be a waste of your time. So I think we have a tendency as teachers to often try to take more responsibility than we should, because you are responsible, right? It's a fine line, right? Because as I've said on this before, the teacher is the needle and the student is the thread. But that thread has to loop through the whole of the needle, and it has to follow the needle, right? It has to follow. And if it doesn't, and it goes off in its own direction, it doesn't matter how straight the needle goes. If you can't force them to do that. So, I think there is a tendency for us to try to say, well, it's our teacher's responsibility to teach us. And it's why I'm going off on a bit of a tangent here. It's not necessarily the question you've asked, but it's why you often hear people refer to sensei or sensei, ex-sensei said this, ex-sensei said that, sensei said this, or my sensei said that, or whatever. And it's like they're kind of shifting the responsibility from them onto their sensei. It's a bit of a weird one. So, what everyone has to realize is it's your responsibility to improve at Kendo, not your teacher's responsibility for you to make you improve. That's not what the teacher's there for. The teacher's there to provide you with the facility to do that, but you're the one that has to do it. So if you want to be a better senpai, and you should do the best to be the good senpai to your kohai, then you should try to do that yourself. And you can ask your sensei, and then if your students ask you, how can I be the better senpai? Well, the best advice to be the best senpai is to be the best example that you can be for them in every possible way. Don't do anything that you don't want them to do, or do the things that you want them to do. Make sure that you're the best possible example. That's the only advice you can give. And if they don't take that and they just want to show up to class just to ignore most of the kihon and then just do jigeko, then fine, but they'll stay stagnant and they'll get punished for it when they try and pass the third dan or the fourth dan or something, because they won't get past that level. They just won't. They might get to it's one of the reasons why there's so many people that get stuck at third dan, is because they don't take that next sort of step, because they're not taking on that responsibility themselves. Now, as to what, I know that's not a direct answer to your question, but I do think that that's the way you should look at it. Mindsets that I use when I visit new sensei, or what do I do with my students when I want them to improve on their own? Well, I tell about my students, like I say, I tell them, practice this at home and you'll get better. And then it's up to them. I can't make them do it. It's up to them. It's up to them if they want to practice at home, if they want to read the Kendo literature, if they want to research Kendo on YouTube. I've put lots of resources out there for everybody in the world to improve at Kendo, or help them improve at Kendo, as a resource. But if people don't use that, then that's not my fault, and it's not the fault of their teachers either, right? So that's how I see that. In terms of when I visit a new sensei, I try to make sure that I do the keiko with them, and then try to make positive attacks without trying to overcome my concerns of being struck myself and try to abandon my own fear of being embarrassed by having them strike me, and instead just try to make the best strikes that I possibly can, and hopefully some will be successful, but if they're not, maybe I'll receive the kaishu waza, oji waza, debana waza, but try to use the sensei as much as possible for my keiko in that way. That's what I'll try to do. And then afterwards, I'll ask for advice. I'll listen carefully and see how that affects my own study going forward. Okay, next one. We've got lots of questions today. This is a long one. Okay, see if I can do this. Hello, Fish Sensei. Thank you for your content. I always look forward to these videos and always appreciate the answers you give. I have 2 questions, if that's all right. 1, 2 years, I've done Kendo and it gives me tremendous joy to practice. Good. I hope I'll be able to do it all my life. As such, I'll likely often try to look into dojos whenever I travel outside my home country. Maybe even yours one day. Well, you'll be more than welcome. Do you have any advice or important pointers regarding etiquette differences, minimizing risks of offending people or representing my club negatively? I have autism, so I often struggle particularly with understanding things that aren't said outright and plainly. Question 2. During COVID, like most people, I was not able to practice in the dojo. So I bought a Furisen shinai to be able to do suburi indoors. Significantly heavier than an average shinai, and some people said I've talked to have expressed the opinion that doing suburi with it is an awful idea due to how different it is from a real shinai. Also, I purchased a weight to attach to the tip of a real shinai in an effort to build more muscle when doing regular suburi. My question is, are these things good for muscle building and practice, or are they overall detrimental and should ideally be avoided in favor of regular suburi? Thanks again, Fish Sensei, and have a lovely day. Have a lovely day yourself. For your first question, look, all you need to do, make sure you reach out to the dojo before you visit it up front. Ask if there's anything you need to know, anything you need to bring. Turn up, be willing to learn, listen to what's said to you, and just do your best when you're there. Be polite, be nice, say hello to people, and I'm sure you'll be absolutely fine. But do reach out first and just check if there's anything you need to know beforehand. All right? Secondly, during COVID, so it was about the Furisen. Okay, so Furisen is a fantastic tool. So is the Suburiko weight. So are these short shinai. These ones as well. They're all fantastic tools, but you can't just rely on one of them. You should use them together with regular suburi. So no, the Furisen isn't a terrible thing. It is good for building strength, building muscle memory, and helping you cut properly. Actually, because the weight can help that, but it will definitely help you build muscles, but don't just use that. All right, so try with a regular shinai as well. Maybe just do some with the Furisen, some with the weighted shinai, and then some with the shinai without any weights on. All right, and I think you should combine it and you'll get the best results out of it then. Okay, next one. Hi, Fish Sensei. So my girlfriend's having a slight issue with her door. When she puts it on in Caesar and then puts her men on, the ago catches on her mune. However, if she ties it loose enough so that it sits lower, when she does day and some other movements, the door slides up. What's the best way to fix this, or is it something she just needs to adjust to having it looser? Thank you very much. All right, so look, especially for women and people that aren't as, aren't as tall as like big guys, it's not that uncommon for the mune and the ago to sort of interact with each other. So it's part and parcel of it, unfortunately. I think it's quite normal. I think one thing you might find is she needs to probably sit up as straight as she can and as tall as she can in Caesar when she fixes the door. All right. Some people tend not to do that, and they tend to be a little bit too, not hunched over, just not straight enough. All right, and that's why the position of the door gets a bit janky. All right, so think about that. It's not that unusual, though, for the ago of the men and the mune to overlap or interact with each other on people who are a little bit shorter. All right, so it is something she'll have to get used to in that respect. Okay. Next one says, thank you again so much for the video's advice. No problem. Thank you for watching. It's been helpful and improving. anywho, my grandmaster, ooh, that's a cool name, tells me that I need to concentrate during keiko, and I need to maintain tension with and pay attention to my partner continuously until the match is over. He also tells me not to wait and go in without hesitation. What is ideal kendo concentration, and how have you worked towards it? So this is a difficult one, because your grandmaster is correct. You do need to be completely concentrated and completely watching your opponent, and you do need to be able to approach without hesitation. Doesn't mean attack randomly necessarily, though. It doesn't just mean go in and attack with a reckless abandon. It means you have to be switched on and always watching the opponent. Okay, watching, seme, look forward, step forward. Watching, how are they reacting? Nothing, okay, man. Okay, no, when I go for men, he tends to raise his hands like this. Okay, yeah, next time, concentrate. What's he doing? Okay, his hands are going to come up. Kote. Okay, right, next one. Yeah, concentrate. Step in. Oh, this time he wants to attack me. Ha! Oh, these sort of things. This is how you have to maintain that concentration throughout your match, okay? Obviously, it also depends on your technical ability as to how many different waza you can do. But for the most part, even if it's just men that you strike, you should do it that way instead of just yeah man. Okay. So yeah, good advice I think from your teacher. Nearly there. Hi Andy, I keep seeing videos of tournaments in Japan where after a strike, the Kendokan moves away using Ayumi Ashi. I'm understanding that has always been that Okuri Ashi was used after a strike. Is it acceptable to use Ayumi Ashi after a strike? On a video, it appears to be a faster option. All right. Which type of Ashi Sabaki you use is not determined in the criteria for Yuko Datotsu. So you're overthinking it on that respect. Secondly, I haven't seen the videos you're talking about, but I've heard this before. I'm pretty sure, I'd say I'm 80% confident that the videos you're looking at, the people aren't doing Ayumi Ashi, they're doing Okuri Ashi. They're just doing it really fast and their feet are crossing over slightly. Crossing your feet over in Okuri Ashi is not the same as Ayumi Ashi, all right? In general, you shouldn't cross your feet over. But what's more important is that you go as fast as you can, especially after striking, all right? So there's a balance to be struck. Yeah, and what you're seeing in these shiai, especially of younger people, is they're going really fast. So sometimes their feet cross over as they move so quickly, all right? It's quite normal. It's still Okuri Ashi. It's not Ayumi Ashi. Ayumi Ashi is different from a conceptual point of view. The point is, whether it's Okuri Ashi, whether it's Ayumi Ashi, you hit and you go through as fast as you can. When I say go through, you go forward as fast as you can. Yeah? Fast as you can. As soon as you hit the opponent, turn around, go backwards as fast as you can. Keep them in your eyesight. Yeah? Don't just go like this with leaving them in the distance like that. That's bad zanshin. It's not zanshin. But if it's actual Ayumi Ashi, I guarantee it's not faster than Okuri Ashi either. It's definitely not faster than Okuri Ashi. So yeah, I think I'm pretty sure that what you're seeing is just the Okuri Ashi with the feet crossing over slightly. Okay, but it's a different mechanic to Ayumi Ashi. Hi Andy, what's the deal with those silk men himo and do himo? Are they just fancy prestigious gimmicks, or is there a real benefit over high quality cotton himo? They just look really nice. They're kind of shiny. I'll tell you what, I'll get a set. Okay, I'm back. Right, so these are the silk men himo. I'm not sure if you can even see them on the camera. All right, but they're a little bit sort of they're smoother to the touch, and they've got a bit of a shine to them. In all honesty, from a practical point of view, they're a bit harder to keep tied on your head because they're a little bit slippery, but they look nice. All right, so I'm not gonna lie, I'm not a huge fan of them. I've got them on one of my men, which is that one that I just showed, because I wanted to try them. But I wouldn't use them regularly. I think the Izome ones are the best ones. The deluxe Izome are your best choice for the most part. Okay, last one. Here we are. Hi Andy, Is it okay to have a come on sticker on the door and your name embroidered on the Hakama during gradings? I've heard somewhere that you might be failed because of that, especially at higher grades, like the 4th dan and higher. What's your take? Okay, so it's not ideal to have name embroidery at a grading, all right? This come on, nobody cares about a come on. Nobody's going to identify you from the come on. So generally, the come on isn't a problem. But it's best not to have embroidered name or your club name or any embroidery really on your uniforms during a grading. However, it's not something you get failed for. You shouldn't be getting failed for it. If the grading panel has a problem with you having embroidery on the uniforms, then it should be known beforehand on the day, and it should be covered over with like tape or something. That's what they do in Japan. Like even up to like 8th dan exams. Even up to 8th dan exams, you see it, they've got like a little piece of tape on the back of the Hakama where the name is embroidered and they're just covering it up. It's so normal for that. So it's not something that you need to overthink. But on most sort of gradings outside of Japan where it's like a much sort of smaller affair, for the most part, like they don't even bother covering it up. They just leave it. All right. So I don't think it's something you need to worry about. But check before you do it. All right, check if you can, check directly with the people you know will be on the grading panel or with your federation. All right, and see what they say. That's it. We're at the end. Thank you for joining me today. I've got some work to do. I've got some dreams to visit. I've got some albums to record. And I've got some pumpkins to carve. Shop at KendoStar. Have a fantastic Halloween. I'll see you all next week. Bye-bye.